For our next and final talk, Wellington is a special place. We here wanted to highlight the joys, successes, opportunities, and challenges and constraints in living, working, and growing the game industry here. So our final talk is a panel with various Wellington studio heads to talk about their personal journeys, their team and project growth, the ins and outs of game dev in Welly. We have, of Dinosaur Polo Club, AIMEE, WOLKEN. From RIFFRAFF, Josh, BOGGS. And from WETA Games, Tony Lawrence. Come on up. And let's get the other microphones as well. They're there. And, well, I guess I'm moderating, so wait, I get to do it for me. And moderated by Rick Stem. All right, why don't you give the audience a brief introduction again of who you are and where you work for, and then we'll get into your journeys.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm the studio director at WETA Workshop. I just found out I'm a veteran of 17 years of games development experience, and I'm 30 years of general experience in creative industries.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, yeah, turn it on and give it a sec. You got it.
Oh, there's a light. Hello. I'm AIMEE. I'm the CEO of Dinosaur Polo Club for the last 3 months, and prior to that I was studio director at WETA Workshop.
Nice. Hi, I'm Joshua Boggs. I'm the founder and CEO of RIFFRAFF. Been in the industry for about 15 plus years. Was at EA and a bunch of places in Australia growing up. So yeah.
Well, let's start by expanding on that. Talk about your journey. Some of you started in development and moved up into leadership. Some of you have been in leadership more or less from the get-go. So why don't you talk us through your journeys that led you to your current place as studio head here in Wellington.
Okay, cool.
Open season, guys.
Yeah, I guess my journey's a little maybe unorthodox. I came through, got my first job at Firement, which was run by Rob Murray back in Melbourne. It was a really good time when I joined. It was the cusp of the iPhone, and so everyone was after games that I was super passionate about, which was unique and innovative games. So I got a job basically off the back of just submitting a prototype game jam that everyone in the studio played, and then that got put into a project, and then I eventually led that project because I was on it for the longest, which is a fairly common story. You're on the project for the longest, and then you become the lead on the project, and then you learn about leadership. So yeah, it's very much learning on the job, and yeah, from there I just kind of used the experience of that to start up a indie studio in Melbourne. It was very much almost like a co-op, I think, so whilst I kind of led it, it wasn't just me. And then with RIFFRAFF, when I came here in 2019, that was the first time, I guess, I would call myself, I guess, a CEO or a boss. It was definitely an adjustment, still learning every day. Yeah, I'll let others talk about it because I imagine we'll dive into stuff like that soon.
Yeah, so I would say that my journey has also been unorthodox, but I've heard so many unorthodox stories now that I feel like there's just no standard pattern of progress. I started off doing law, and I went into insurance law, which drove me out of insurance law. Went to retrain in computer science. Again, never had any intention of going into the game development industry. But happened to meet somebody who was really inspiring to me. We started a small startup together, GeoAI Games, and from there I eventually found myself at WETA Workshop as a programmer, very similar to Josh. Through various events, found myself in lead positions, very much learned on the job, and ended up being studio director there. Yeah, which leads me to where I am today.
No, cool. I wouldn't want to be unorthodox myself. My first job in games was the studio head of 2K Australia, as we were just finishing off a small game called BioShock. kind of a dream start, I guess you got to say. But the history of me getting there is like, it was my second dream job. My first was a sound engineer at a shed on the end of Bennelong Point in Sydney called the Opera House, where I was the head of sound and the technical director before I left. So I've been lucky. I guess that experience in that forum led me to other leadership roles in different industries. And the one before I came into games development was the head of airport security with Sydney International Airport. 2K thought, well, I can manage creative people and handle the pressure of an international airport security, just about right for games. And that's where I landed.
Amazing. You guys represent a really great variety here, but of course there are many other studios in Wellington. I did want to give a special shout out to Big Adventure. You can talk to Sammy here. We wanted to have Olivier up here as well, but there is a bit of a communication snafu. So I promised I'd give him a shout out. Check out Big Adventure. So thank you for the introductions, guys. Now let's talk a little bit about your studios. So what is your vision for the studio, if that makes sense, and or what is the vision you've been tasked with carrying forward?
Yeah, I think I joined WETA Workshop 3 months ago today. I was just saying, I hope I've got through my probation. No one said anything, so I'm saying that's an okay thing. The studio itself has been around for like 7 years, and I've had the benefit of being able to have a chat to AIMEE on several occasions to get her experience of what that is like. It was more a, look, we want to be a multi-game studio, can you make that happen for us? We've got 50 people here who are about to ship a game. They've had a lot of different experiences, they've gone through different technologies, but we still have all the ambitions of WETA, and WETA has big ambitions, which is great, because so do I. So at the end of the day, we are looking to become a multi-game studio. We're focusing on PC, console games, and at that time, we're going to set incredible standards and meet them. Like every studio, original IP is something we want to get to. There's a path to get there. We're forging that path, and I want to do that within about 5 years or so, or about 3 or 4 games between now and then. So, small things.
Yeah, nice. I think where I feel like I have been tasked is to build on a foundation, a very solid foundation of special culture that Dinosaur Polo Club has. It's similar in the sense of actually we are looking to become a multi-game studio as well. There's Metro and Motorways, but there's obviously bigger ambitions to have multiple titles released, and getting there looks slightly different to what it will look like for Workshop, and we will do that in our own sort of unique and Dinosaur Polo Club way and style. So there's a lot of stewardship and caretaker responsibility that I feel coming into this role. I've only been in it around 3 months, almost exactly the same as Tony. So I'm still very much feeling what the culture of the studio is and making sure that I do justice to the vision and the talents of the people who have been living and breathing Dinosaur Polo Club for the last years.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, for me, it kind of goes a lot back to my roots of, indie development and, early iPhone days. And with Framed, which was a game I made as well, like everything we've made, we've been trying to do something that's quite unique and innovative. So for me, that's actually the biggest, most important thing about the purpose that I drive with the studio is what we're doing actually unique? Is it going to outlast, even the studio? I think it's maybe a little immature to believe a studio will be around forever. Like everything kind of crumbles down in the end. But what you make can last a long time if you really, are making something that can leave a dent. And so for me, yeah, like that vision, is all driven around that. So that kind of simplifies a lot of the choices I make when it comes to running the studio. I refuse to be off the tools, and so that makes it very much like a project-focused studio. That doesn't mean like we're not people-focused. It's just that the whole team is working on one game. We've tried to do 2. My time is already limited, and it just leads to failure. So now it's just like it's one game that everyone is on board with, and I think it. Because we're so selective about the types of games we want to make, it means that everyone, it's like our point of difference. We don't necessarily have the money to get the best talent, but I believe we have the projects to get the best talent. So that's kind of my philosophy around it.
All right, for some of you, this will be more recent than others, but talk us through your first months. How did you settle into the role? How did you build the team, if that was the case? How did you get to know the team you had and insinuate yourself, if that was the case? Yeah, think back to the early transitions.
Yeah, okay, I haven't gone first yet, so I'll go first. I spent the last 3 months, I've had a real focus on just understanding. So I've sat down with every single team member, I've tried to understand their goals, their ambitions. I've sat down with the producers and with the leadership team to understand where they want to take the company so that I'm not driving off in a different direction to what's already been established. So a lot of the last 3 months has been about listening and understanding, and these next 3 months are sort of focused on taking some action and directing us into to where, following that trajectory that was already kind of set and making sure I've understood it so that we continue together in the right direction.
Cool. It's hard not to add to that, really. I guess the thing I would have added to that is the job kind of starts before you come on board, right? You end up looking at everything the studio's done before. I could say I've been watching WETA workshop games for a long, long time. I visited there, personally, just to see what they were doing a few times. But really, what do they do? What have they done? Who works there? What does the leadership look like? What are their values? Not just leading the studio, but being a studio that you can align your values to as well is really important. Because as a studio head, every conversation you have, every room you walk into is an intervention. It just straight up is. People look at you and expect you to do or say or lead or whatever that is every day of the week. So make sure you know what you're walking into. It would be a thing, and that's for any job you walk into, right? But as a leader of a studio, it's particularly important. I've been around for a long time, so people kind of know a bit about me. That's good and bad, depending on what they've heard. But it's an opportunity to start to work with that as well. It's like, okay, here's some expectations, we've got them already, let's see how I can help you be a better at whatever you do kind of role. It is the listening, as AIMEE was saying. You've got about 3 months before people start to say, okay, you've had enough time to do nothing, now go and make some change and make an impact, and it is like that. So that's the time to plan, listen, find out what's good, what can be improved, and then make plans to make that happen. And that's what I've done with any leadership role I've gone into. You make a lot of mistakes along the way, and there are always learning opportunities, but it makes the next job easier.
Yeah, cool. That's good. It's hard to follow up on those.
Do you remember back when you first started it?
Yeah, I guess like for RIFFRAFF, those first few months were quite difficult just because it was definitely an adjustment from going to just feeling like a dev to now running a studio. Not just with like the pressure of, you're in charge of all these people's livelihoods and families and the kind of unspoken things that only other studio heads talk to each other about. But yeah, I remember doing a bit of training around like, how to be, a good studio leader and all this. And ultimately, they all felt a little bullshit. I've always gotten the best results from just connecting very directly with my team members as a person. And yet the most difficult thing, I guess, over that period of time was like, that doesn't always apply anymore. You are more than just a person to people. You externally are kind of just like an idea. You represent something that isn't a person sometimes, which is like weird to adjust to. And that's both negative and positive. Internally, you represent almost like a parent figure in a way. And yet, having recently become a parent, it's definitely like, there's a lot of parallels there.
I'm going to put you guys on the spot with this one, but so it's okay if you don't have anything. But do any of you guys have a key memory from those first few months, good or bad, an interaction or a moment that light bulb moment for you?
I've got like a few different experiences through like my first time as a studio head coming from like I've got an MBA, I know how to process the crap out of anything. Walk into a game studio and go, this is really inefficient as far as a pipeline's concerned. And then being taken aside by the lead designer and like, yeah, we do things differently in games. Calm the fuck down. Like, okay. So that was like, okay, I really have to start to learn about this whole thing rather than just come in as a manager. With WETA Workshop, I think it was, I don't know, the experience that the people I work with had was very cagey, like who's this Australian guy that's just walked into Wellington and taken over in a studio. So it was like, treat that with respect, and that was what I really had to step back a bit and just listen a lot. I like to talk, I like to have an opinion, that's kind of the role. Just to sit back and go, no, these people really want to tell me their experience before we start working together. So that was like, yeah, that's what we really need to do for you to be successful.
Yeah, I don't know that I've had a light bulb moment as such, but it's a continuous reinforcement of the, I don't want to say quality of people, but quality of thought and kindness and care that comes out every day, and feeling that over and over again. So that's been quite an experience.
Cool. You both done really positive ones, so I'm going to pick a negative one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I guess like one of my big light bulb moments was like something that I guess what's what I'm trying to find. It is reinforced a few times, like throughout my time in this company and other things, which is if there's a problem, it can often be quite difficult to find where the problem's coming from. Like the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the grease, right? But like what's causing the squeaky wheel can often be hidden, and you can keep pruning things away to, do what you think is fixing the problem and it's not. And then it all kind of comes to a head, and there's a moment that's like, if it was in the movie, it'd be at the end of Act 2 when you finally it's that point where you're like, oh shit, it's time I need to learn this lesson the hard way. And yeah, like I think, going through that is, I don't know, it's a humbling experience. Despite how much information you have as a studio head, you never really have all of it. There's always, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's just it's a feeling that has kind of persisted, and I've relearned over and over again. It's a lesson I've relearned, yeah.
Thank you for those off-the-cuff insights. Let's talk about the industry a bit. Obviously, a big downturn, a lot of layoffs, and not immune to it here. A lot of studios have had to kind of tighten the belts and focus on delivery. On the other hand, we have reasons to be hopeful. GDSR is great. Code has been doing great work and gotten more funding. There's been new studios starting and a couple of really big releases and success. We've heard from some of those people today and yesterday. So I guess what are your thoughts on the state of the industry? What are the opportunities? What are your hopes? What are your concerns? And I'd be interested for you to talk about it globally, New Zealand-wide, or Wellington, or all three if you have insights.
It's a big question.
Yeah, interpret it how you will. It is a framework for you to ramble for our audience.
Rather than maybe comment on the state of the entire industry, I might just focus in on DPC's response to the state of the industry.
Beautiful.
Which kind of goes to the vision as well, that we want to grow, but we don't want economic growth. So we're not focused on the typical economic cycle of growth of increased headcount and increased profit, but growing our people and growing our specific capabilities and nurturing that people-first approach. So doing it really sustainably and setting an example for how you can be a successful studio and you can make multiple games and you don't need to grow larger than you're comfortable with. You don't have to meet that expectation. And hopefully by doing that, we can show how you can support the wider industry, help grow the wider industry, but not do so at an unsustainable rate, so that when market changes happen, you are not a victim of that.
Yeah, that's spot on. For me, I came to New Zealand as a choice, and one of the reasons for that choice was seeing some fantastic things happening over here for a long time. That was a real draw card for me, being in the Australian industry, and really, it's all the global industry, really. To see the level of innovation and success that's happened here, it was certainly something I was really attracted to. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of making the next group of game developers from New Zealand to have the success that's already been built here. That's kind of what I like to do. So beyond that, it's a difficult time, right? We've gone through lots of heavy investment, and the hangover from the heavy investment is still being felt. New Zealand's no different than any other country, but I think it's got the innovation that's going to get things through, because that's what gets games get made and be successful, is innovation within industry. It's been one of my pet peeves at the moment. I think we've gone more than 7 years without a platform innovation in real terms, which makes it difficult for everybody, in that everyone knows how to make games on all the platforms that have been doing it for 7 years because they're really good at it now. So to compete, you have to be really good at everything, which is hard, which is another reason why, like I said before, New Zealand's a great place for the innovation, just how things have been going. And there's obviously some success being built there, and more success to come. So I think it's a positive here more than anything else. Certainly from where I've seen other places, and Australia included, I'd say there's a heap of opportunity for success.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Thoughts
so
on
I
the
get it right.
industry,
Yeah, cool.
locally or otherwise?
Yeah, to kind of build a little bit on Tony's comment, I kind of feel a bit like the way forward, given how much, even consoles now are kind of homogenizing to almost non-existence. And once that happens, we're all going to be playing on the same flat screen with a controller and a keyboard and everything else. And the kind of almost glut of independent games that just feel a bit cloney, they feel like exactly like another game, but with some new art. And basically, what I'm trying to get at is I feel like the state of the industry needs to really embrace this idea of trying something despite the possibility of failure. We need to do that to actually move anything forward in a positive way. I feel like with an economic recession and capitalism and everything around the world kind of collapsing, be authentic at least. Just be true to yourself to the end. At least in that way, if all of this goes up in flames, we can look in the mirror and be okay with who we are.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me, man. I've been watching the news coming out of my prior country and then trying not to watch the news. So let's talk locally. We have talked about, play-by-play maybe being on the South Island in the near future, but for now it is in Wellington and has been in Wellington, so let's talk about Wellington. What do you guys think the advantages and challenges are in living and working in Wellington specifically? No judgment.
Distance is a big one. Distance to, I guess, I compare it to America and even Australia. I remember being in Australia both as working in a studio and independently, it was a lot easier to find other experienced developers, and it was very easy to click and get stuff moving because you were all of us had like a medium to high level of experience. The hardest thing I think in Wellington is the, I mean, I want to preface this is great long term, and I'm not whinging about this whatsoever, but the hardest thing right now is the work that needs to go in to grow everyone up to a shared level of experience. And then, you know, once we're there, then that's great. Like, we'll be like everywhere else. But it is like extremely challenging. Yeah, that's a big one. Economy, cost of living. Yep.
Don't feel bad. We've had plenty of brutally honest talks these last 2 days.
Sweet.
It's kind of hard for me to comment. I mean, 3 months is how long I've been here. I love it. I'll recommend to any game developer in the world to come to Wellington. You know, it's a fantastic city. The thing I'd say, I mean, I echo those things. I mean, what I'd say is around distance, I'm 2 hours closer to the US than I used to be. That's great. But beyond that, it is, well, what does the industry look like now? Yeah, I agree. I think standards need to improve. That's just everywhere. And the thing about that is what have you got to work with within the creative industries, I guess, community. The thing I'm looking at around now isn't just where's the games talent, is what are the adjacent industries doing? How can I work with those kind of things? What technology are they using? How can we incorporate that? Who do I need to speak to be able to do that? I've found everyone I've spoken to is pretty cool. You know, it's like Australia without the edge. I like that a lot. And, you know, AIMEE reached out to me within a week here to say, hey, let's catch up. And then as a former studio head of the same company, that was fantastic. I'd probably like to get involved in that on a industry-wide scale for Wellington to see what's going on there. And again, I've met a few of the studio leaders around. They're all really cool. So it's more like, you know, as a collective experienced people, what can we do to help? What can we do to grow what's here? I'm really interested in looking at that.
Yeah, I might just give a couple of why Wellington and not other places in New Zealand. Wellington has quite a variety of game studios operating out of it, of all different sizes and all different kind of phases of growth. So I think from a career and opportunities perspective, we have an edge to some of the other centres around the country. We also have really changeable weather, which for me, as a creative inspiration, is quite an advantage. So whenever I'm outside, and I'm outside quite a lot, I can get really shitty because it's really windy, but that can drive some thoughts, and on a calm day you're so appreciative of it that can also drive some inspiration. So I really I think that's a creative advantage for us.
Yeah, so guys, I lived in Wisconsin and Texas. In Wisconsin, it is below 0 Fahrenheit, like 6 months of the year. In Texas, it's 40 degrees C 6 months of the year. The weather here is not that bad. Though I also want to thank you guys. You know, I've said this before in my opening, but as an immigrant coming to Wellington, this international city has just been so friendly. I found it so easy to make connections and friends here, and I think that's a really huge and wonderful advantage. And as an American, I also just wanted to call out, like, the work-life balance here is amazing. In 5 years, I've never been forced to crunch or forced to work overtime, and you know, nobody in America believes that when I tell them. So I hope you Kiwis take that for granted in some ways, because I don't want you to worry about it, but I also think it's something special about New Zealand. Before we kick it off to some audience-focused questions and then to the audience for them to ask questions, I was wondering a couple things. So first, do you guys have any questions for each other? Some of you know each other, some of you only met recently. Anything sparked in this conversation that you wanted to prod each other on?
Probably, but I don't want to ask them in front of everyone.
Fair enough.
No, it's interesting. I think AIMEE and I had a chat before we came here, and I think the insight that AIMEE was giving me was finding the right role for you has been really, really cool. And I think I heard a bit about that, having Matt just talk about that. Why do you want to be here? You know, why do you want to make games? It's something that is always being asked. I asked it this week, Matt, so there you go. But to find the role that you belong in and the role that you feel comfortable in makes a huge difference. Get out and talk to people. They'll help you to find those things. And I'll talk to AIMEE about that later.
Josh, you said something, unless you got an answer to this first, or a question, please.
No, I was just I did have a question. I guess the question maybe is for both of you, like given your experience so far, what is it like to step into an existing studio in a management position? Like, I imagine there's a lot of diplomacy and careful navigating, and maybe a bit of like ice breaking to really like make those meaningful connections before you can make a difference. Like, what is it like? How does it and how does it feel going through that as well?
Yeah, so the two experiences that I've had, one at Workshop and one at Dinosaur POLO Club, were very different. So at Workshop, I was part of that team for 4 years before I stepped into that studio leadership role. And that was a really big challenge because I'd been part of that team. I had been a member of the development team for years. And now I had people in my team who were my peers reporting to me. So that was much, much different. I already had the trust and, I guess, respect of everybody that I worked with. They knew me, they knew my values, they knew who I was and what I stood for. So from that perspective, it was relatively easy. And then coming into Dinosaur POLO Club, I was very aware that I had not been there and I had not lived and breathed that studio in the same way. And so there was I suppose I had a heavy emphasis on making sure that I listened and understood and didn't barrel in there like I knew the place, because I didn't, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know really how to answer that. I mean, coming into WETA Workshop there, it didn't have a leadership role specifically for a couple of months. And I guess knowing the history, I always take the perspective of things are the way they are because they became the way they are. So it's really looking at, well, there's nothing here that should be a surprise. I mean, it's all a result of previous behaviours or previous expectations or whatever, the previous experiences. It was more about don't trample on them because you just put the whole studio offside. It was really like, yeah, I'm here to put my brand on what we do here. I've been put into this role because people I've spoken to believe I'm the right person to do the things that they need to do, and not just for them, but the person to do it with you. So that was kind of the way you look at it. Like, I'm here and you're my partners in crime. You don't know that yet, but that's what we're here to do, and making that very clear. I mean, the getting trust is the thing you do as fast as you possibly can, right? You absolutely do. And that's an integrity thing for me, right? People get upset and say, I want something to be done. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. Off you go.
That's good answers. What does it emotionally feel like on the first day for both of you, stepping in those doors?
I felt great. It's like for me, it was like, yeah, I was saying to AIMEE, this feels right. Like, this is the first time I'd used my entire skill set for a while. That was fantastic. I mean, there were a few things that were difficult. It's the first time I haven't reported to a CEO in 30 years, right? So that was like, okay, there's a hierarchy in a diversified business I need to work within and understand what they do, their things, and it's difficult. But as far as I'm concerned, I got the keys to a pretty creative car, and people trusted me to go drive as fast as I want. So, awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, there was a mix at all times, apprehension, excitement, nerves. Yeah.
That was great. Thanks, Josh. Quick curveball for you guys. You said something interesting and true. It as a CEO, a founder, a studio manager, you're in certain contexts an idea rather than a person. So why don't you guys tell us something personal? What's something you want to share with the audience that won't tarnish your idea status about you yourselves as people that they might not know? I'll give you a sec to think about that while I let you guys know the rest. Then we're going to have about 10 minutes for audience questions, and then I've got one final question for them to end. So I'll be looking to you guys in just a moment, so think of your questions.
All right, I'll go. I told you that I started off in insurance law. I actually got myself performance managed out of that role. It helped make the jump super easy, but it also helped me realise who I was, what my values were, and that I was never a right fit for that anyway.
Wow. Thank you for being vulnerable.
I guess for me, maybe, yeah, given the context of the conference and everything, I got my start in games maybe like a little late for the era. It was like I was 23, and I spent maybe 8 years working hospitality and a lot of other jobs beforehand. We didn't have much money growing up, so I was working. Yeah, it was incredibly valuable having worked normal jobs, quote-unquote normal jobs, before getting into games.
It doesn't have to be job-related. Like, also tell me about your guys' pets. I own a 2-kilo toy poodle. How about you guys?
13.5-kilo Maine Coon cat. It's
Damn.
yeah, it's huge. He likes to sit on my keyboard at home, so I can't work at home because of him.
I've got a clever and beautiful 2-year-old daughter who is my world right now. So, for
way
me
to
right
one up
now,
our pet ownership with a human there, buddy.
Yeah, I guess that's always the thing. It's the cliche thing. Yeah, once you have kids, your priorities completely change. It's her and family and then work. So it's a good perspective keeper.
Looking back over your growth and leadership, what advice would you give to leadership of new studios starting their first game or project?
Great. Again, for recording purposes, looking back on your leadership growth, what advice would you give to new leaders starting their own studio or project or game?
It is a journey, and you will not know everything on day one. Don't rush to try and learn everything. Just take it one lesson at a time.
Yeah, I tell all my producers, your plan is wrong, and that's pretty much game development. No matter the game you start isn't the game you release, and be prepared for that.
Yeah, I think just do the simple things well. Don't try to be overly ambitious. Like that sounds like the wrong way. Yeah. Just do the simple things well and know why you're doing it, because when you hit the dark times, that's going to be what gets you through.
What do you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Talk us through your day-to-day.
You know, recently I wanted to be more transparent with the team, so I started a new Slack channel, because you can never have too many Slack channels. And it's my CEO Slack channel, where I share what I'm doing every day. So I try and be transparent about what I'm doing every day, because a lot of people have that question, what the fuck are you doing all day? And I try and sort of capture my calendar, but also capture some of the conversations that I'm having. But a lot of it does come down to conversations. You are making yourself available for conversations with people to make sure that you're understanding and you're on the same page, and you're not off in your own world of strategy and finance and budgets, but you're listening to what challenges the team are going through right now. Are there any communication frictions that you can help resolve? Are there any misunderstandings that you can help clear up? Making sure that you're available for those conversations is probably 60% of it, and the rest is, I think today I organised some insurance. It's important, don't forget your insurance.
You can't escape it.
Organised some HR and people and culture stuff that needed to happen. Prepared for this talk. And did a bunch of planning around some project decision-making processes that we're going to be working on together as a team in the future.
It's hard to say what day-to-day is, because I don't think I've ever had the same one ever. What I do have a philosophy, though, and my philosophy is it's all my fault. Now, that kind of drives everything. Like, sometimes the fault is incredible success. I like that. Sometimes it's not, and that's something you have to deal with. What I do like to do, though, is prioritize. Like, every single day, it's like getting to a submission candidate. You triage your responsibilities on a daily basis. This needs to be done today. I really want to talk about the strategy in 5 years, but this person actually needs to be paid. So that's a priority for that day. It is what happens for the project, how do I manage that internally, how do I manage that up through a publisher, how do I manage it up through my organisation, what does the next thing look like, what do they need to know, what conversations do I have. But every day it is prioritise what needs to be done. But if you can take some time to sit back, close the door, and I don't have a door, but to take the time for yourself and think about, well, what's really important for the entire studio and how am I bringing it closer to that goal, that's really time well spent.
Yeah, I think you both capture it pretty well. The only thing I'll add is it feels like you are falling through the sky towards the earth and everyone else is also in the plane with you, but you're building the plane as fast as you can before you hit the ground.
Earlier there was a point raised about lack of a senior or experienced talent, especially in the context of New Zealand. And though the onus is not on studios, but to support that kind of development, and especially in these kind of trying times, do you have either volunteering or internship programs at your studios to support the development of this kind of middle or senior kind of expertise?
What programs do you have at your studio, or otherwise can studios do to contribute to the lack of expertise in a smaller country to lift up and get that experience that you were talking about earlier?
I'm actually going to have a maybe spicy take on this. Internship and stuff is actually incredibly difficult and is a lot of work for the studio. There's not really a whole lot productive an intern can really do. A lot of people also don't feel comfortable making people work for less. I feel really uncomfortable doing that. I'd rather just struggle, than feel like I'm taking advantage of someone. But yeah, that's my bit of spicy take. I know, I want to be like, that's because of the size of our studio. We're like less than 20 people, around 20 people. We're in that really awkward size. Whereas if you have the time and resources and staff, it's completely different.
Yeah, first I'll point out there's a difference between the ideal and the reality. To get that kind of senior experience, we do have a training and development budget, and ideally we would encourage people to use that to upskill, to maybe visit other studios to see what they're doing, to learn from seniors outside of New Zealand, and to bring that skill set back into the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to do it. There's build or buy, right? We buy the talent to come in and do stuff, or we build it knowing we can't buy it. I take your point, Josh. It's really hard to bring people in from who are trying to learn. It takes time away from the rest of the studio trying to achieve their goals, and that's difficult. When you've got the time, yeah, do it. The other thing is, and I do this, do it as I say, encourage those who do have those senior roles to go out and share where they can. I think you were leading to this, AIMEE. I mean, it's really important to engage with the community. You've got a responsibility as a senior to do it, I reckon. So take that seriously. If you're wanting to build a country's skill set, go and do it. If you've got the capability to do it. And these conferences are a great way to do that.
Thanks, Tony. You took the words out of my mouth, and I will follow up with that. Remember, you have met people here that probably have experience that you want to have. Follow up with them. I bet a lot of them would take the time to talk with you, mentor you, do that. I know I always try to. So make use of this conference to do that, like you said.
What do you think about the upcoming indie studios of New Zealand?
All right, do you have any thoughts on the upcoming indie studios? We've got a lot of them. Shout out to Code for being a big part of that.
I was going to say, if only we had a paid mentorship program.
Yeah, you're right, we missed it, B. You want skills, go to Code. Code will develop senior skills. Code. They're right there.
Throw me some money, V.
Sorry, indie scene, talk about that.
Nothing gives me more hope than people striking on their own and trying their own thing. Worst that can happen is it doesn't work out right now. I think that's the biggest thing is not right now is okay. But taking a shot is really important. So yeah, for everyone doing it, my hat's off to you. Been there, it's hard. And please, everyone, keep doing stuff like that. But also, don't just quit your day job and go do it. Like, real quick, just want to be like, I feel like no, I'll stop. I'll let other people talk, because I do this all the time.
I mean, I'm incredibly excited about the indie scene. Quite a few months ago now, I had the pleasure of going to one of the Code Run pitching sessions, and I got to listen to a whole bunch of indie studios pitching their ideas, and I wanted to play, every single one of them. So you just look at the programs that are happening like that in the country. You look at the incredible commercial and critical successes that are coming out of some of the indies in the country, and we're smashing well above our weight.
I don't know much about the local indie scene just yet. I'd like to, so hit me up. I do take a look in to see what things are doing. I'm always happy to offer an opinion. That's a studio head for you. But yeah, advice if I can provide it would be fantastic. But generally, yeah, indie studios are the future. That's where you can go and try to do things that overseers like me will say too risky. So go and have a go.
So we talked about what it's like to be a leader and start a studio. We talked about how to get more experience. And I will double down. Via's right. People often just think of Code as a funding institute. They are also a capabilities growth, mentorship, business skills place. So make use of them for that. But let's talk about maybe the more practical thing of just getting a job, joining. What advice would you give to anyone here joining a new studio for the first time?
Yeah, I think the people in that studio, more often than not, are the real heroes in the industry. Like, they're unsung, they're hardworking, they have so much knowledge. Learn from them.
Maybe don't go in with any preconceived ideas of how you think that studio will operate. The great talk before talked about how lead can mean different things in every studio. So learn about how that studio works, who the people are. At the end of the day, game dev is a collaborative effort. It revolves around people working together, so learn as much as you can about the people you'll be working with and how they operate, and communicate how you're going to operate.
Yeah, games is hard. Everyone says it in many talks, probably every single talk I've seen forever, but it's true. And then one of the reasons it is because it's not about you. Leave your ego at the door when you walk into a game studio, because you're there to collaborate and do the best you can as a team. Take that perspective and you'll go far.